Okay. Well, Mom says I'm cussing too much in these videos, so I gotta tone it the fuck down a little bit. I've gotta tone it down a little bit. That's not a big deal though. Nah, man. Plan for today. Finishing the painting, dudes. We're finishing the boy today. Is this good? Okay. We're finishing the painting today. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about this idea of the meta, the most effective tactics available. And that was actually one of my proudest, I think, communication moments, just for me personally. I liked how that came across. I think I could do some refining. I need to go back, rewatch that video. I tend to, kind of jumble over things and ramble on a lot. It's just, it's just part of who I am, but something I can definitely work on getting better at communication-wise and stuff like that. The cussing thing as well, toning that down. Man, I'm just as much a work in progress as the stuff in my studio, And I think that's like, if there's a big takeaway from this channel in general, it's that, we're all works in progress, and it would be erroneous to assume that I am somehow separate from the works that I'm making in my studio, or that I am somehow above or beyond or having transcended them in any way. I'm starting to see more and more that we're both progressing, we're both constantly being worked on, and my work affects me just as much as I affect it. I don't think that's maybe something I had always realized. I think maybe in the past I had seen the two as distinctly separate. And I don't mean in that way of like, separating the art from the artist, and, if somebody says something problematic, then you have to, discount their entire body of work. I don't mean that. I mean like, I have improvements to make on myself that requires a sort of creative energy, just as much as I have to make improvements on canvas that requires a creative energy. Because the more I'm starting to think about it, the more I see that it's this idea of like growing is very much a creative act. It's not stagnant, we're not stagnant as people. There's a train coming. No. Laters. Nice. So yeah, dude, we're all in progress. I'm not separate from my work, and I've just got to keep improving on all fronts. So today we're working on a slightly cleaner vibe, on the old videos. We'll lower the cussing a little bit as much as I can reasonably, because sometimes it just comes out, dude. I'm also going to work on I think I've gotten a bit better on the ums. I've lowered the ums, I think, considerably. But in lieu of them, I'm having these long freaking pauses, where I'm just like, and then coming back. But I feel like maybe that's preferable to the repetitive sound, but then maybe the loading thing is also annoying. I can edit that stuff out, but the reason that I keep all of those things in there is because I want to keep a real record of how I'm growing, not just in my work, but as a person, work in progress again. And so a lot of these things that, I hear a criticism or a constructive critique or something, you know, like my mom telling me about the cussing. I'm like, oh, maybe I should go back and re-edit these videos and just upload them again. And it's like, nah, man, you got to keep them. You got to stand by what you've done and look at them in the face and then keep growing and keep moving forward. And I think that's going to be the best strategy all around for me. And speaking of which, I was thinking about the clan party painting that I was working on last night, and I just realized, one of the there's the and I was just realizing that I misspelt the word clan in context. It's supposed to be with a K, and it was just a very simple typo. You know, obviously the Ku Klux is spelled with a K and not a C, but that just, for one thing goes to show you how pure of heart I am. Didn't even realize that's how you spelt it. But also, I had the inkling, or I had the urge to want to go back and re-edit and take it down and put it back up correctly because I kind of misspelt it. But also, it's just, I have to keep it there because it's a record of how I'm growing and how I self-edit over time. Because it's a very common thing that happens to me is I'll make a sort of like simple error, like a simple typo, or I'll kind of overlook something, and then I'll move on within a project and then realize, oh, there's actually a way that this can be optimized a bit better. But I'll have this urge to, or my inclination is to want to go back and edit and sort of erase all record of error and stuff like that, and so that I present this, face of having known what I was doing and this, this facade of like competence, and having known from the very start how things were going to pan out. And that's just simply not true, man. That's just simply not the way it works for me. I don't know how much it works for other people, but for me, it's certainly not the case. I rarely know the full picture of what I'm doing when I get started, and frankly, that's probably one of the most beautiful things about art is that you can just kind of start something and end up in a very different place than where you started. And I think that's all I got for this morning, man. I apologize if my cursing is jarring to you. I'm gonna definitely try to tone it down. Mom, I'm sorry. I love you. You know that. Thank you for your constructive criticism. I appreciate that you watch every one of these videos. I'm speaking to my mom here, but also to all of you. I appreciate that everybody watches these videos, and if you're sticking through something that's a little bit jarring, or something like that, or you're overlooking something that you might not agree with, that means a lot to me. It means a lot to me that you're overlooking one of my character flaws for the sake of the higher goal, which is learning here and growing, etc. So with that in mind, I'm going to leave you guys and get to work, man. Let's get to work, okay? Much love. Alright, dudes. So for this last day, I figured we'd slow things down and give you a real-time look, at least for the moment, of how finishing touches go. As you can see here, I am mostly working on like edges, just kind of like the edges of the tears, working with a larger brush. Obviously the sort of marks that you're going to get are going to be much more broad, and they're going to cover a lot more surface. So with little things like tears and rips and things like that, you really want to use a smaller brush, and that's exactly what I'm doing, and just kind of hitting it with a lighter value as well, because obviously these tears are, or maybe not obviously, but the tears are coming out more into the light than the background, and so we want to communicate that with a lighter value. And I'm basically going around the canvas and finding areas where it might work, and I'm bringing out the value of the ends of the tears. Some of this is adhering to the original reference, but a lot of it is improvised. Like we spoke of the other day, after we have this kind of working template for how we can paint a tear, which is a light surface with a dark shadow underneath and then a little highlight. Having that working template, I can basically add tears wherever I want, and so that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm just going around the canvas and adding little rips and tears wherever I think they should go. Some of them are directly from the reference and some of them are not. Here I'm actually just adding some shadows, and I'm going to come back later and add the light part of the tear. But you can see how I'm just basically improvising a lot of the distress on the actual chair, and then working the actual edges of the chair too, making sure that all of those little rips and tears and stray pieces of pleather are represented, especially on the edges. And I think that's, you know, a lot of what the final layer or final passes always look like. Working edges, modulating edges for the last time, sharpening things up or blurring things down if you need to. And of course, you know, working that light fixture, giving it another little pass. And then the little printer in the back, which is really cool. Got this little printer going. So I figured I'd slow it down or zoom in here for a sec to show you guys how you can paint the bevel of a screen on a printer or any other surface. This is another just a very simple trick. You just add, you know, I'm adding like it's a similar color as the background of the printer or that local color, but I've just added a little bit of yellow. So it kind of gives it a bit of a green color, which is what you might see on those little printer screens. And in my absence here, I'm just mixing color. And here I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna add the little bevel, which is basically just communicating the drop shadow of the actual edge in which the button or the little screen is. So here all of that was just basically like the drop shadow on the top and then on the right, because the light is hitting it from the top. And you can kind of, again, that's one of those things that you could just apply anywhere if you need to add a button, and it's just an easy way. If the lighting conditions are what they are in this case, then that's just an easy way to go about that. And there's like this little blanket thing on there too that I just indicated. It was a flat color at first, but I wanted to make sure that it had some kind of decorative element. And now I'm just going into the background and adding one final layer, one final pass. It was a little bit lighter. And making sure also to fill in all of the little edges and make sure that those are well defined. We don't want any blurred edges here because everything is in focus, essentially. And then going back in here around the shadow of the cord from the light fixture. A little bit of finger blending, of course. Don't ever let anybody tell you you gotta stick to brushes, bro. And, you know, lastly, not lastly, but here I'm also adding more of the cushion coming through. There was a lot of it that I hadn't added yet, and that's something that we spoke about in the very beginning, I think maybe day one, is that we traced every little tear, every little rip for the most part, but we ended up just painting right over it so that we could come back and improvise on it later. For me, it's a lot easier to build flat layers and then start adding detail and stuff as opposed to starting with details and working around everything. It just makes more sense to me to build up solid flat layers and then at the very end hit it with any kind of distress or details that you need. And then this part, I'm going in and just manually adding all of the little areas where the cat would have dug his claws in and just made a little tiny hole. I think that's kind of one of the parts that really makes this distress look very convincing. And here I'm actually adding all of the tears that I added the shadows for earlier. Little light and hell fucking yeah. So yeah, man. Oh, dang it, I cussed again. Sorry, Mom. That's it, dude. That's the end of this painting. Let's cue that MF B-roll. And after that, I'm gonna leave you guys to have a wonderful weekend. I hope you have a good Saturday, man. I hope you have a great Saturday. I might hang out with the boys from here, see how it goes. But, oh yeah, dude, thank you guys for joining, watching this. I appreciate your time. I appreciate that you spent time looking at this video, and I hope that you got something out of it. I sure did. All right, thanks, guys.